Great, here we are guys, back for another tutorial. Porthello Cove, par 5. And a lot of these par 5s are going to be very wind dependent about the way that you should go about doing it. It's kind of maybe best to get these kind of awkward situations. Here you can see a major headwind. So getting a win like this can be, very favorable in my opinion, because it kind of shows you kind of the worst possibility that you should be doing. So in this scenario, it is going to be very, very tricky to go about doing this hole. And, probably want to go up to the left-hand side. You can see my opponent here is using a royal. I'm not going to use a royal because I don't see the likelihood increasing that I'll get there in 2. Maybe you do, but it just seems maybe kind of low probability. In fact, here you even see it rolling into the rough anyway. And as I mentioned, I'm going to assume that in most situations, since I'm probably maybe not going to get all the way there, that I'm just going to kind of play it much more, just conservative and try to save the balls. When you go to a higher elevation like this, you shouldn't have to play much wind effect. So in terms of where the ball's going to land, I'm thinking kind of maybe a minus 30% incline or so. So let's just see what this looks like. Minus 30%, 11 miles per hour or so. It's probably only going to land maybe about 6 rings down or so, I would imagine. Maybe towards the, since it's straight into the face, maybe, minus 20% just in that isolated case. As I mentioned, though, here, you'll see that we get another straight in the face wind. So with back-to-back winds like this, you're looking at least a 50% draw of not being able to get there in 2. So, that's one of the biggest reasons that you see me just kind of just going to say, I'm just going to go with Kingmaker, kind of conserve my better balls for another time, or maybe the tournament. It's only tour play. Chances are, if you're in this tour, you don't really need the coins. It's nice to maybe win, or maybe go for max trophies or whatever your goal is. But I would assume at the same time, winning this hole probably isn't going to make or break your day necessarily. So just something to, keep in mind. And here you can see that I'll probably just try to get it somewhere up in here. I'll play very close to a max ring adjustment. Since this isn't a precision shot, I'm not going to use the app. And not to mention, I'm not even going to, I'm just going to approximate 13.4. It really doesn't matter. I'm just trying to, keep it in play foremost. And there you can see, a little bit closer than I wanted it. Some wind effect there, kind of really dictating where the ball went. But all is safe. And here you can see that we should have a very straightforward approach. This is probably one of the worst wins I could have got for my next shot. Do keep in mind that we are going to be shooting down to a lower target here. I'm going to set my elevation up, maybe plus 20%, for example. Let's see what my opponent does. That is about 5.5, 6 rings, 6.5, 1 point. So that's what, 2.0. At least a 20% reduction, maybe 30. And let's just see how it turns out. Looks pretty good overall. So I'm just going to go ahead. We'll bump this number up. I'm not too familiar with playing up here. This will be basically my first attempt ever from this situation. So just want to get kind of a nice, good idea as to what I'm going to need to do. And here you can see that, somewhere in the neighborhood of 13 rings for my case. Keep in mind that I'm also going to have to curl. You can see that my ball guide is still towards the edge here, and I'm not quite max club. So there's 10 rings. Here's 13. I'm only going to go 13 total, trying to be as precise as I can. As I mentioned, not only wind effect, but I'm going to need to over curl. So here you're going to see me add on. Let's just see how this plus 30% number looks. Not too bad, but it looks like I didn't quite factor in enough for a wind effect. Might have been a little bit light on my ring adjustment as well. So maybe even plus 40% from up there. Might get it a little bit more in line with what I needed. You can see that I was a little bit farther away from the rough. I think maybe I set up maybe 2 rings, and it looks like I landed maybe about 4 rings from the edge. Or it's hard to eyeball, but those are the types of things that I'm always thinking about. That's how you're going to learn the elevations more than anything. Is you're just going to basically learn from your mistakes. So what most people are doing, they might be watching the ball. I'm watching where it lands and, in relation to kind of where I started. Those are the types of things that I'm thinking about. So I know how to set up my elevation chart.